What did your parents teach you that you would never ever teach your kids? Story 1. That parents don't have to apologize if they are wrong, because they are parents. I grew up in a big family, and many times one sibling would be blamed for another sibling's action, both by parents or other siblings. If I yelled at sibling A for something sibling B did, I would be made to apologize to sibling A. If my mom yelled at me for something sibling A did, after everything was sorted, I'd ask, "Are you going to apologize to me now?" And she would say, "I don't have to. I'm the adult. I have kids of my own now, and if I do something wrong, I apologize." Story 2. Always cry if you need to. I spent most of my childhood getting yelled at to stop crying, and it really fricks you up. You grow up internalizing negative emotions and even blow them off, which of course doesn't help. Also, to never be scared to approach me with anything you're concerned about. I'm 25, but I still have to lie and keep secrets from my dad because he would blow the frick up or shut me up if I vented to him about anything that dealt with relationships, my mental health, or health-related matters like tampon usage, birth control, gyno appointments, etc. Reply 1. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm 25 and I honestly don't remember the last time I cried. It was at least a decade ago. My dad was always big on the "stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." But it's not just him. Where I'm from in England, we're taught that men don't cry. And unfortunately, it's the same in a lot of the world. Now, I just can't. I've been depressed, I've been upset, I've been to the funeral of a man I'd grown up with, and nothing. So yeah, I wouldn't do this to my kids. Listen, never be afraid to cry. Crying is not something bad. Expressing your emotions is very important, both for men and women. Story 3. That growing up was something to fear and dread. There was a lot of enjoy your chocolate now because when you're an adult, you can't eat it. Enjoy watching TV now because when you're an adult, you have to clean all the time. Do you ever see me relaxing? I wish I was back at school with my friends all day instead of working a job I hate. You just wait, you'll hate your job too. When you become an adult, there's no nice clothes, just work clothes and home clothes. Adults don't have hobbies, so enjoy it while you can. Now, as an adult, I see that these were all choices. I can eat whatever I like. I do not have to clean all day. I do not live in a show home. I have had jobs that I didn't like. I made the choice to job hunt and find something else. I can choose to buy clothes I like and wear them to work and at home. It's my choice to pursue my interests or not. I'm often in awe of how easy adulthood is. Not because it is, but because it was always presented to me as this mountain of misery. And I've chosen to eat the chocolate and play my cello instead. Reply. Childhood was way worse. You can't change your family, you can't change your school or place that you live in. It's hell for some kids. School is hell too. When you grow up, you can get a job. If you hate it, you can always look for another job. It may not be easy to do, but the option is always there. You can almost never change schools, at least here because of zoning restrictions and other things. You are limited to one school. Better make it work for you somehow. Few parents want to homeschool their kids, but you always at least have the option of changing jobs. Story 4. That my emotions are their fault. Growing up, my mom would get frustrated with me and then lash out. She would then say something like, "I yell because you're making me so angry." No, was just a kid doing kid shit. You yelled because you're not in control of your emotions. I've caught my mom doing this shit with my daughter, and I call her out on it. You can't put that shit on a kid. I let my daughter know that what she did may have been unkind or need correcting, but she's not responsible for the emotions of the adults around her. My mom did that kind of thing too. She would be a complete B word because something was going on with her. Or if we did something when she was in that mood that wouldn't have pissed her off at another time, she would be a B word. It was just so confusing and scary as a kid. It didn't make any frickin' sense. Once I grew up and realized she did this, I saw the same patterns with myself. Reply 1. I'm sorry you went through that. My mom is exactly like this. It's like walking on eggshells around her because I never know what her mood is, and just being in the same room with her fills me with so much anxiety. I do the best I can to not disappoint her, and it never feels like enough. I hate having to live with her. She makes everyone in my family so much more miserable, and I can't stand it. Reply 2. My kid is only barely older than 1, and I'm watching this kind of behavior develop in my wife. I'm hoping it's just the stress of having a 1-year-old and a full-time job, but I don't really see how it's going to be any less stressful as he gets older. She's a good mom, though. I don't know how I'll handle it with her if it escalates, but I know I'll always be there for him. Story 5. My grandmother would plug my nose so I couldn't breathe. Then when I opened my mouth to breathe, she would shove food in my mouth. It happened upwards of me being around 6 or 7. Also was told to not complain because it wasn't abuse, and my grandparents didn't have to take me in. Then when I turned 13, they would take dinner away from me. I have suffered with being underweight for a long time and was yelled at for being too skinny. I know I have lots of oppressed memories from all the abuse I suffered. I did reach out for help, but no one believes me because my grandmother is a respected part of the community, and she wonders why I have depression. Story 6. Not really a story, but that anxiety and depression are not real health problems. Hey, if you ever feel depressed or anxious, make sure to share it with someone who you trust or to talk to someone older than you. Believe me, it will get easier and you will work through it. Story 7. Clean your plate. Reply 1. As a registered dietitian, I can say that this is hands down the worst thing you can do to your kids' eating habits. It destroys their internal hunger and satiety cues later in life. Reply 2. Agreed. I think it comes from the Depression era when there wasn't enough food to go around and food was hard to get because everyone was so poor. Back then, we didn't have the nutrition programs to give food to children of poor families that we have now. So it was either eat what was given to you or don't eat at all. There was no choice. You still shouldn't say clean your plate. Even my parents agree on this one. Children have different appetite levels, and it may not be the same for all children, and it may not be consistent. One day they may be more hungry than the next and want more food. The next day, maybe less. Also, you shouldn't make them eat things they don't like. It's not good for them. Story 8. Came here to say this. I'm 26 and still struggle massively with guilt when I feel stressed because I shouldn't, or because other people have it worse, as my parents love to say. Okay, maybe it shouldn't cause stress, but it does? Recognizing that it's causing stress and dealing with the impact that has and trying to mitigate and reduce the stress is important. Even just a bit of empathy when it's clearly something that shouldn't be stressed over is important. How else do you learn to deal with it? Story 9. There's no reason to be stressed. Everyone gets stressed, whether it's something big and life-changing or small and inconvenient. Growing up, my sister and I always heard, "You shouldn't be stressed about this. This isn't a big thing to stress over," and stuff like that. Instead of being taught to manage our stress, we've learned to hide it and bottle it up so our parents wouldn't think we're dramatic or something. Instead of teaching kids to not be stressed, I teach them how to manage stress in healthy ways so they can eliminate it or be able to navigate through it easily. Reply 1. My mom made my issues feel so invalid. Made me feel like crap. I ended up bottling stuff up, they wondered why now, and then I'd have these big emotional outbursts, and eventually it became depressed. That didn't get taken seriously initially when I opened up about it. Because of that, I waited and suffered for 6 months for an upcoming appointment for something else with my mom to tell the doctor out of the blue because of the way she reacted to it. If I have kids, I don't want them to feel the way my parents made me feel ever. Yeah, it's important for people to understand that stress is a normal part of life, and everyone experiences it. It's not helpful to brush off someone's stress as insignificant, and instead, we should be taught how to manage and cope with it. Your story about your sister and your parents' reaction is all too common, and it's important for parents to be more understanding and supportive when it comes to their children's emotions. Story 10. Never say a word if someone hurts you. Never object. Never protest. And if you cry, that is your weakness coming through. Don't cry. If you speak out when you are attacked, you will be attacked twice as hard. Silence is the only way through to safety. Say nothing, no matter what. This advice really fricked me over. Reply 1. This happened to me too. Keep crying for nothing and I will give you a good reason to cry. Sadly, that's not as uncommon as you think. Sometimes parents won't specifically say that, but this is what our kid minds understand. Story 11. I hate my mom for trying to guilt trip me so much. She does it so much that I can tell when she's about to, so I can point it out, which makes her guilt trip me on accusing her of guilt tripping me. It's a vicious cycle. I can definitely relate to your frustration with your mother's guilt tripping. It's not healthy for a parent to consistently use guilt to manipulate their child's behavior. It creates a toxic cycle of mistrust and resentment. It's important to set boundaries and communicate with your mother about how her actions make you feel. It's also important to remember that you are not responsible for her feelings, and you should not be made to feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Story 12. Never allowing me to tell my side of the story. When I was getting in trouble, most of the time it was my fault or something I could have done about it. But there were times that there was an honest explanation that would have explained the situation, and it was always talking back. Just give me a freaking second. Reply 1. God, so much this. I swore never to do this to my children. As a kid, I remember vividly sitting there so freaking confused because my parents just made up a completely bullshit story about what happened based on the small amount of it that they witnessed instead of letting me explain what happened. I spent 2 weeks grounded one time because I broke a car window with my football when I didn't even go outside that day. It was actually broken when it was hit by a parking car. I couldn't understand why my parents wouldn't let me explain. It's so freaking weird and is complete abuse of power to just arbitrarily decide right and wrong like that. Parents, if you are watching, take notes. It's very important to let your child tell their side of the story. As you can see from this example, it can leave some serious permanent damage. Story 13. My parents taught me to not share my feelings. It has taken me a long time to be able to do this. I don't want my kids hiding their feelings. There's some really important lessons I had to learn as an adult about expressing feelings, all because of how my parents treated my feelings. I am not repeating that shit. My kids will know all feelings are valid and that feelings are meant to be spoken about without judgment. If you don't feel that's possible, you should be sure to have a safe person to talk to about it. Story 14. To never question authority or your elders. Reply 1. That's the worst one for me. If a person isn't curious and doesn't think by themselves about reality, they are only a shell of a human and will never fully live their own life. And it's a tough thing to learn later in life. Story 15. That you have to give Granny, Grandpa, Uncle Pervy a kiss goodbye. No, you frickin' don't. It's your body. You get to decide who you hug, kiss, etc. You're not allowed to be rude, so you have to say hello, goodbye, but you don't have to hug or kiss anyone you don't want to. Not even Granny. Not even if she really wants a kiss, and she'll be disappointed if you don't kiss her. Reply 1. I used to hate that shit. Didn't mind hugs, but not the kisses. Some people do some weird-ass kisses. No disrespect to my granddad, but he used to do multiple quick kisses on my neck. I knew them as vampire kisses, although thankfully he didn't bite. Story 16. To be afraid of money. I spent so much of my childhood walking on eggshells because of my mom's constant anxiety over money. If I ever asked for anything, she'd look at me like I was about to put her into financial ruin. Reply 1. My mom flipped out when I spent half my money, $80, on fireworks. I told her that it was my money and I've got a savings account anyway. She acted as if I had spent her money. Story 17. I loved catching bugs when I was a kid. My father told me that dragonflies use their tails to sew people's lips and eyes shut. My kids don't need to learn that. Reply 1. Ugh, why do adults think it's so funny to say stuff like that to kids? I remember when I was around 4 years old, I was at a vending machine, and some old guy came up to me and told me there was a snapping turtle in the vending machine. I was terrified, and I remember him laughing at me and walking away. I'm almost 30, and I still remember that clearly. Kinda sad. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.